Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the Africa Brief on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories this hour. Polling closes in Ivory Coast's presidential election, with incumbent Assange Atora expected to secure a fourth term amid a divided and weakened opposition. One senior opposition leader has dismissed the vote as electoral robbery, as turnout remained low in southern and western strongholds. Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces say they have seized the army's main headquarters in Al-Fashir, the military's last stronghold in Darfur. The army has not yet commented on the claim, which marks a major escalation in the year-long power struggle. Sudan's government accuses the RSF of killing prominent North Kordofan tribal leader Suleiman Jabba Juma Sul in a drone strike that also left at least 16 others dead. The attack in the RSF-controlled Al-Mazroub area marks a major escalation, dealing a blow to tribal stability and peace efforts across the region. Now in Europe, at least 4 people are killed and 20 are wounded as Russia launches missile and drone attacks across Ukraine. In Kiev, 2 die and 13 are injured after ballistic missiles hit the capital, sparking fires and damage to buildings, prompting new pleas from President Zelensky for Western air defences. The leaders of Thailand and Cambodia have signed an enhanced ceasefire deal in Kuala Lumpur in the presence of US President Donald Trump, formally ending their deadly border conflict. The agreement builds on a July truce brokered after Trump urged both sides to halt fighting or risk losing trade talks with Washington. The second day of trade talks in Kuala Lumpur is paving the way for a productive meeting between Presidents Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, says Washington's top trade envoy. US and Chinese trade officials hold their 5th round of negotiations since May, as both sides work to ease trade tensions. US President Donald Trump says he will increase tariffs on Canada by an additional 10%, announcing the move on Truth Social after blasting an Ontario ad aired during the World Series. He ends trade talks with Ottawa as the ad quotes Ronald Reagan, warning that tariffs trigger trade wars and economic damage. The Kurdish group PKK calls on Turkey to take immediate legal steps to safeguard the peace process and allow its fighters to enter democratic politics. In a statement from northern Iraq, the group says freedom and democratic integration laws must be implemented without delay. Now our top story, we start in Sudan, where the paramilitary rapid support forces have claimed that they have captured the army headquarters in the city of Al-Fashir, the Sudanese army's last stronghold in the Darfur region in the west of the country. This marks a significant political victory for the RSF and could hasten a physical split of the country by enabling the paramilitary group to consolidate its control over the vast Darfur region, which it has identified as the base for a parallel government established this summer. Activists have long warned that an RSF takeover of the city would also lead to ethnic attacks, as seen after the capture of Zamzam camp to the south. Now we're joined by Abdallah Hussein. He's a journalist from Sudan. Abdallah, thank you very much for joining us. Could you tell us a little bit more about this development and the importance of this HQ to the Sudanese forces and some of the capabilities that the RSF will now have now that it has reportedly been overtaken by the paramilitary group?
Yes, thank you for having me. Yes, Sudan hadn't yet comprehended the loss of Para City yesterday in North Kordofan when it woke up this morning today to another painful blow, the fall of the besieged city of Al-Fashir in North Darfur. According to multiple reports from the rapid support forces themselves, they have announced they had captured the headquarters of the Army's 6th Division, the Sudanese Armed Forces' last stronghold in the Darfur region. Multiple reports also confirmed the claim, though the Army hasn't yet released any official statement on its current position, if it's just a strategy, or if all the headquarters have been surrendered to the RSF. For months now, El Fasher had been under relentless RSF siege. The city's hospitals, camps, neighborhoods endured waves of shelling, cutting off humanitarian aid and communication. Its fall now marks a new dangerous phase in the conflict in Sudan, one that raises fears of a humanitarian catastrophe for hundreds of thousands of civilians who had sought refuge there. In a statement, the RSF themselves celebrated what they called in the statement as a historic victory, claiming they have liberated the division and destroyed what they described as the army of the Islamic movement. The language of the statement, filled with ideological references and tribalist tone, echoes the same rhetoric that has fueled the war. This war since the earliest days. But to many in Sudan right now, this so-called victory is not a liberation, according to multiple analysts we spoke with. It's a continuation of a campaign that has devastated entire cities in the country, displaced millions, and targeted communities across Darfur, Kordofan regions. The RSF repeated claims of fighting for freedom and justice stand in stark contrast to the testimonies of survivors who described massacres, looting, and deliberate attacks on civilians and on tribal communities in Darfur and in Kordofan.
Abdullah, where are we in the broader scope of the war, especially with this huge development today?
Well, currently, multiple analysts also describe this victory for the RSF today, also adding to their yesterday's victory in Bara. Now they secured two major cities, one in the north of Darfur and another in the north of Kordofan. By taking down El Fasher, now the RSF have full control over the entire Darfur region, which has been the worst case scenario for multiple analysts here and for multiple people, the people inside Sudan. This is their worst nightmare. Now the RSF controls the 5 states of Darfur. El Fasher was the only city remaining for the government, for the Sudanese armed forces. Now with its falls, the RSF, they might not be equal, but they do have some leverage now.
Abdullah, thank you very much. Do stay with us as we have further updates from Sudan, where the government has accused the paramilitary rapid support forces of causing the death of a prominent tribal leader in the West Kordofan. Abdul Qadir Munem Mansour, or the paramount chief of the Dar Hamar tribes, had died on October the 25th in a hospital in the Al Nahud after his health deteriorated. The government claims the RSF prevented him from seeking medical treatment abroad, labelling the act a violation of his right to life and health. Mansour had been vocal and a supporter of Sudan's armed forces in its ongoing conflict with the RSF. And the Sovereignty Council also condemned the RSF's attacks on civilians and vital infrastructure, calling these actions war crimes. The government has urged the international community to take action against the RSF and hold them accountable for their escalating violations, including recent strikes on Khartoum Airport and power stations in various states. Abdullah joins us once again. Let's briefly talk about some of the claims that Sudan's government has made. What evidence do they have that the RSF is responsible for the death of the chief of the Dar Hamar tribes leader here, Abdullah?
Yes, we did read indeed the Sudan Sovereignty Council condemning what it described as systematic attacks by the RAP support forces on civilians and the state, and also, yes, they are holding the RSF fully responsible for the death of the Prince Abdul Qadir Munem Mansour, the chief of the Dar Hamar tribes, one of the prominent tribal factors in Sudan. He was reportedly died after being denied medical treatment and prevented from traveling abroad for care, which is what the Sudanese government said on their statement. The council also denounced yesterday repeated assaults on community leaders in Kordofan and Darfur. It's worth mentioning here that there has been a raid in the past week that targeted the leaders of an entire tribal factor, killing all the tribal factors and the tribal leaders in that gathering. They were affiliated with the tribe of Al Majnoon. The tribal leader has been killed in that raid, and also some of his affiliated leaders. So I believe right now there has been no evidence, crucial evidence that's on the table right now that's fully accusing the rapid support forces. But I believe that the Sudanese government is now relying on previous incidents and also on guidelines right now to accuse the RSF of such incident. They describe this as deliberate acts of aggression, describe this as a war crime, urging the international community to take urgent actions against such incidents and such blatant actions happening by the rapid support forces in North Darfur and in North Kordofan.
Abdullah, as you have cited, a severe humanitarian crisis is occurring in Sudan, one that is not frequently reported by media and international media. Obviously, the government has urged the international community to take action against the RSF. What kind of international intervention has occurred, if any, and if so, what is needed?
Well, indeed, Sudan is currently having one of the worst, if it's not even the worst, humanitarian crisis globally. Unfortunately, we haven't seen any international intervene in the areas where these atrocities and the hunger and the displacement is happening right now. We're talking about Kordofan and Darfur, specifically about the northern Kordofan and the northern Darfur parts, indeed, where all the humanitarian agencies and the global agencies, relief and aid agencies, they couldn't even get close to this part of the country. They got some guarantees from the government to guarantee their safety for the staff and for the aid convoys, but they didn't get any response from the RSF. I believe such agencies are afraid for the safety of their convoys and the safety of their staff, as the RSF previously attacked an aid convoy with drones, completely damaging the entire convoy.
Abdullah, thank you very much for your time. Absolute pleasure to have you on the programme. We now move on over to the Ivory Coast, where voting ended yesterday in the country for a new president, with incumbent Sanjay Ouattara expected to win a fourth term against a divided opposition, further hobbled by the barring of the two leading candidates. One senior opposition figure has already dismissed the vote as electoral robbery, and turnout was low in parts of the country, south and the west, which is considered the opposition's stronghold. Although the Electoral Commission announced a turnout of 50%, but based on initial assessments of ballots counted so far, turnout appeared much lower in many polling stations in the main city of Abidjan. Election results are expected to come by Monday. The 5 candidates are competing for Ivory Coast's top job, but it is widely expected that Ouattara would retain his seat, and if he wins, he will be expected his rule to last by almost 2 decades. Ouattara has overseen the country's economic reconstruction since the civil war, achieving an annual growth rate of 6%, driven by a boom in cocoa. However, 37.5% of the country's 30 million people still live in poverty. Meanwhile, as the presidential elections are underway, fresh signs of clashes between police and demonstrators were reported in Lupu, in the southern Ivory Coast. Supporters of former President Laurent Gbagbo and Tidjane Tidjam both barred from the election, attempting to disrupt the voting. We are now joined by Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. He's a former Indian ambassador and he joins us live from New Delhi. Ambassador Sachdev, what more can you tell us about Otora? He's set for a fourth term in office. He has many critics, but he is expected to rule for over 2 decades if he does win this election.
First thing to start with is to pronounce his name right.
Okay, apologies.
It's a French way of writing, basically a Muslim name called Ouattara. So he is 83-year-old and has been in power since 2011. Ivory Coast is a prosperous country in West Africa, thanks to agriculture. 2/3 of world's cocoa is produced in that country. And there are other riches such as fisheries and coffee and other items. So the country has, as you mentioned, recorded a good growth rate since Mr. Ouattara took to power. And that should have made him popular. But the country is badly fractured between Muslim North and Christian South. And Mr. Ouattara, as I mentioned, is a Muslim who's popular in North, but not so popular in South, including the capital. He is likely to win, but Ivory Coast has a dubious tradition of post-electoral violence. People attribute motives to the Election Commission and dispute its results. Moreover, the Constitution provides for 2 terms for the president, and President Ouattara is now fighting for his 4th term. So there is a bit of a controversy there. I should also add that an election commission has barred a number of popular leaders, including the wife of the past president, whom he replaced in 2011, again Christian person, and another person who was a prominent banker in West Europe before returning to Ivory Coast. I think the elections are likely to be won by Mr. Ouattara, even though if he doesn't win 50% votes outright, there will have to be a runoff, which should decide. But electoral violence is something that one needs to be cautious about. And voting percentage, as you mentioned, was pretty low, even though the commission claimed it to be 50%. Then that is another controversy that could ignite post-electoral violence as people feel alienated to his very personalized and patronage-based route. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Sachdev. Extremely informative there. Pleasure to have you on the programme and thank you for your time. We now move on over to Tanzania, where they go to the polls as well next week to elect the president and members of the National Assembly and also their ward councillors. President Samia Suluhu Hassan, who came to power following the 2021 death of her predecessor, John Magufuli, is the only nationally recognised candidate. However, after initial praise for giving Tanzanians greater political freedom, she has faced widespread criticism for increasing oppression in the country. The main opposition party, Chadema, has accused the government of orchestrating a systemic crackdown on dissenting voices ahead of the polls. Neither Chadema nor the second biggest opposition alliance, Act Wazalendo, is taking part in the election. Further, major candidates from these opposition parties have also been banned from standing in the elections. Now we turn to Liberia, where the Department of Homeland Security is pursuing the deportation of Kilmar Albrado Garcia, stating Liberia has agreed to accept him. This follows previous attempts to deport him to Ghana, Eswatini and Uganda, all of which were halted. Albrado Garcia, wrongly deported to El Salvador previously, is now facing removal to Liberia, a country with no ties to him. Albrado Garcia, who was previously deported to El Salvador despite a court ban, remains detained in Pennsylvania as legal disputes over his removal continue. Albrado Garcia, who lived in Maryland, the United States, with his wife and his children, was deported in March to El Salvador's notorious Seacot mega prison, even though a 2019 court order explicitly barred such an action due to fears of persecution. The Trump administration alleged that he was affiliated with the gang MS-13, claims that he and his family attorneys firmly deny. Tropical storm Melissa has become a hurricane and is expected to strengthen into at least a Category 4 intensity, according to the US National Hurricane Center. The rapidly intensifying storm is expected to wreak havoc across the Caribbean, with catastrophic floods, landslides and storm surges expected in Jamaica and southern Hispaniola into early next week, forcing authorities and residents to batten down. Hurricane Melissa is located around 130 miles southeast of Kingston and around 250 miles southwest of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, according to the NHC advisory. A hurricane warning is in place for Jamaica, and Hurricane Watch is in place for the southwestern peninsula of Haiti and parts of Cuba, including Granma, Santiago de Cuba, Guantanamo, and Holguin.
Get myself organized, prepare, try to suit the customer where they go. As you can see, we here bag some sand, because this is what we do, bag sand, prepare for the customer. Some people when them come, them buy, block off them doorway, them gateway. Some buy for put on them house top, keep down the zinc from lifting, so it's all good here, Yeah. Come in Thursday, alright.
And that's a wrap on the Africa Brief. Keep watching NewsX World.